this fact was noted, did they turn around and bury it in professional silence for 10 years until a woman dug it up again. Why indeed? You hear me? For about 2,000 years of Western history, female sexuality was denied. When it could not be denied, it was condemned as evil. I agree with that. The female was seen as divinely designed to be a passive vessel, serving reproductive purposes only. And one not too ancient dictionary, clitoris, was defined as a rudimentary organ. Hell nah. While masculinity equaled the cosmic generative force. With fraud or fruit, female sexuality was not so much rediscovered as shit. You know what I'm saying? That thing is not rudimentary. You know what I'm saying? Gotta give it one of the, and get it going. Then you'll find out how divine it is. But masculinity equaled the cosmic generative force. With female sexuality was not so much rediscovered and pathologized. Freud dismissed the clitoris as an undeveloped masculine organ and defined original libido as male. You feel me? Get baptized. Clitoral eroticism was reduced to a perverse neurosis. Even as Masters and Johnson's laboratory studies were published in Human Sexual Response in 1966, their findings were not integrated into psychoanalytical theory. In Mary Jane Sheffrey's research during that period, she found not one work of comparative anatomy that described or even mentioned the deeper lying clitoral structures. Yet every other structure of the human body was described in living detail, right? This stuff is all deeper, right? Because they've been demonizing women for a long time, right? So, of course, after they demonize a woman's magical powers, they got to get to the flesh of it and demonize her body, right? Demonize her mind, body, and soul. That's what it's all about, mind, body, and soul, right? So they demonize her mind, they demonize her body, they demonize her soul, right? And it all takes place in succession, right? One after the other. Boom. Right? Because I've spoken about it, how it was these women out here being herbalists and root workers. I mean, the men were doing it too. We know that. We don't have to argue about who was doing what, but we know women were out here doing these things. This is where the witch trials and all these things came about. You feel me? Oh yeah, 360. That's my homie. I'm not against what you're saying. I'm just saying it's not what y'all think it is. This is white people. Oh yeah, facts. I'm in agreement. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. Hey, look, Los. The things I'm saying are not in direct response to you. You know what I'm saying? I'm just reading and saying stuff. I don't want a man reading my poems or cards. I tell you that. Facts. Hey, I don't want no niggas doing a lot of things for me. But yeah, I forgot what I was saying, so I'm gonna keep reading. Yeah, but they've been demonizing women for a long time, y'all. Oh, okay. Let me just keep doing my job up here reading. I just be taking breaks to read the comments, and I guess I need to just focus on what I'm doing and let y'all do what y'all doing. All right. Clitoral eroticism was reduced to a perverse neurosis, right? She found not one work that described or even mentioned the deeper lying clitoral structures, yet every other structure of the human body was described in living detail. Even today, with our relative sophistication of 1987, right? There's no sophistication of 1987. I'm going to tell y'all that right now, right? If y'all believe that there's sophistication in 1987 that has to do with these people that are controlling the world, whatever color they are, you're a fool. You got to go back in time and you got to study the alchemists and the, you know what I'm saying, philosophers back in the day that were really trying to find the answers. We are frequently whistled at by magazine headlines that promise breathless articles announcing the discovery of a new spot, a G spot, an X spot, located within the vagina. Within all these new spots exists the old wistful desire to deny the existence of the clitoris as a trigger organ of female orgasm. Why? There is the generalized traditional fear of female sexuality. Further, there is discomfort with the similarity with the common organ of the female clitoris and the male penis, right? Women are used to hearing the clitoris described as an undeveloped penis. Men are not used to thinking of the penis as an overdeveloped clitoris, right? Somebody asked that question earlier, right? And that pretty much sums it up, right? Finally, and really what I think they are is just instead of one being under or overdeveloped, like I love balance. What I really think is they just both develop differently. From this indistinguishable thing, one developed as the writing point, one developed as the non-writing point. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Or one developed as the input or the output, and one developed as the input. You know what I'm saying? And then when they come together, they become one again. Whatever. I think everything in the world is trying to find balance. Same with why we don't produce milk. I don't got no milk. Finally, and most seriously, there is a profound psychological and institutional reluctance to face the repercussions of the fact that female clitoris is the only organ in the human body whose purpose is exclusively that of erotic stimulation and release. What does this mean? It means that for the human female, alone among all Earth's life forms, sexuality and reproduction are not inseparable. It is the male penis, carrier of both semen and sexual response, that is simultaneously procreative and erotic. If we wanted to reduce one of the sexes to a purely reproductive function on the basis of its anatomy, we don't. All right. Now, if you were reading this as a biased person, you'd probably skip over the we don't want to do these things, right? It would be the male sex that qualified for such a reduction, not the female, not the human female. We don't. Oh, hold on. Y'all can't see. All right. We don't want to do that. We don't want to reduce anybody. All right. But these are only biological facts. These are only biological realities. As we know, facts and realities can be and are systematically ignored in the service of established ideologies. Peace, Miss Lovely. Whose ideologies are these that ignore facts and realities? Or, you know what I'm saying? It's not ours, I'm telling you. It ain't no original people's plan to do that. Throughout the world today, virtually all religious, cultural, economic, and political institutions stand where they were built centuries ago on the solid foundation of an erroneous concept, a concept that assumes this the psychic passivity, the creative inferiority, and the sexual secondariness of women. How do y'all feel about that? Do y'all believe that? Do y'all believe this to be true? Put a one in the comments if y'all see that to be a true thing that's taking place in the world, right? Passivity, creative inferiority, and sexual secondariness. I do remember being young and watching TV, and like one of the biggest jokes was like not caring about if a woman gets off, and it's all about like just getting your nut and getting the hell out of there. So that could be, you know what I'm saying? That could be a offshoot of this thought process. This enshrined concept states that men exist to create the human world while women exist to reproduce humans, period. If we argue that data exists, not solely biological, but archaeological, mythological, and anthropological and historical data, which refutes the universality universality, sorry, y'all, of this erroneous concept. We are told to shut up, but because something called God supports the erroneous concept, and that all that matters, and that's all that matters. That's the final word. They do use God to make you believe anything that they say, right? And I'm not talking about people that are really righteous. I mean, people that are unrighteous will say, well, God said, who's on the phone? That's just the way my text messages sound. Beep, beep. I don't know. I didn't even do that. It just set itself up like that. All right. All right. Throughout the world, throughout what we know of history, something called God has been used to support the denial, the condemnation, and the mutilation of female sexuality, of the female sex ourselves. Today, in parts of Africa, predominantly among African Muslims, but also among African Christians and Jews, and some tribal beliefs, young girls are still subjected to clitoridectomies. Have you ever heard of that? Clitoridectomies? Sheesh. This surgery, often performed by older women with broken glass or knives, that's crazy, excises the clitoris, severing the nerve of orgasm. And operation is intended to force the girl to concentrate on her vagina as a reproductive vessel. Infibulation, a more thorough operation, removes the labia minora and much of the labia majora. The girl is then closed up with thorns or required to lie with her legs tied together until her entire vaginal orifice is fused shut. Oh, Jesus. With the straw inserted to allow passage of urine and menstrual blood. So shut closed with a straw like this. Dang. Can y'all imagine that? Facts. You hear me? Shout out to the Indies because we ain't doing no shit like this. Ain't no effing way. Can you imagine peeing out of this and the rest of your stuff is shut down or like that? That's crazy. Right? On the wedding night, the young woman is slit open by a midwife or her husband. Further cutting and reclosing is performed before and after childbirth. Complications from these surgeries are numerous, including death from infection, hemorrhage, inability to urinate, scar tissue preventing dilation during labor, painful coitus, and infertility due to chronic pelvic infection. In 1976, an estimated 10 million women were involved with this operation, and something called God justified it. Something called man justified it, and they blamed it on God. You know, we gotta word these things correctly, because something called man justified it, and they blamed it on God. That's what happened. A God, exactly. A God who supposedly created young girls as filthy sex maniacs who must then be mutilated to turn them into docile breeders. Is this Africa? Well, yeah, it was talking about this whole thing was talking about Africa. That's crazy. And this for anybody that's wondering, this is the book that we're reading out of. It's called The Great Cosmic Mother: Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth. If y'all want to get a screenshot. Like I said, a lot of y'all ain't seen me in a while. I took a break, you know what I'm saying, to get my life in order with my children, you know, all that stuff. I went to find myself, find God, like always. Always take a break to do that, you know. Plus TikTok is It's demanding of your soul, your spirit, your energy, everything. People don't be talking about shit, and I kind of got tired of people talking about bullshit all the time. Nothing at all. And the Most High, the Infinite, told me like, yo, with all this wisdom in the world, how many times are you gonna sit around and talk to fools? You could be chasing infinite wisdom, and you rather sit in one spot and talk to fools for hours. Fuck that. Fuck that. And fuck a lot of people. And fuck a lot of these people on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't support you or love you or none of that shit. They can't wait to see you fail. They can't wait to see you fall. They're just around waiting for their moment to watch it happen. They just don't want to miss the moment when it happens. So that's why they're around. But it's not just TikTok. This is how it is in the real world, even though TikTok is the real world because we're dealing with real people. The word infibulation comes from the Latin fibula. I'm only dealing with people that are teaching. You know what I'm saying? Either teaching or supporting. If you on that bullshit, I can't do it no more. That shit is a waste of goddamn time. Meaning a class, right? So infibulation comes from the Latin fibula, meaning a class, right? And they're clasping, you know what I mean? Those civilized Romans, great highway builders, also invented the technology of fastening metal clasp through the precipices of young girls to enforce chastity. This shit is crazy. This practice was copied by Christian crusaders during the early Middle Ages in Europe. They locked up their wives and daughters in metal chastity belts and then took the keys with them while they were gone, often for many years, fighting for God in the Near East. And lest through hypocrisy and racism, we dismiss these practices as merely barbaric or ancient. We must recall that clitorid clitoridectomies were performed in the last century on young girls and women in both Europe and America. Doom, doom, doom. This surgery, very popular with 19th century Victorians, was inflicted on any female considered to be oversexed or as a punishment for masturbation or as a cure for madness, right? A cure for madness. Now we know that there was a lot of times so even around the times for the witch trials and all these different things that were happening, they were calling women mad, right? And a lot of people were called crazy in a lot of different parts of history because they had wisdom that was unknown to these people, right? So these people that didn't have the wisdom would come around people with the wisdom, see them do something and call it sorcery and madness and all these different things, but it was just because they weren't used to it. You come from a certain part, like if I was to go to another part of the world right now and go deep into their culture, I will see things that I'm not used to. And there's a chance if I'm not open-minded, I'll look at what they're doing, I'll laugh or I'll call them crazy. But that's just because I don't know the intricacies of what they're doing and the outcomes of what they're doing. So to me, it looks crazy. You know what I'm saying? Peace, David. These determinations were all made by male relatives, male physicians, and male clerics, and the women involved had no legal say in the matter. These are extreme examples of the repression and mutilation of female sexuality, always sanctioned, however remotely and dishonestly, by something called God. All the other repressions and mutilations of the body, of the mind, of the soul, of our experienced female selves are so well known and documented that they need no numeration at this point. We can all make our own list. The point is, wherever repression of female sexuality and of the female sex exists, and at the present writing, this is everywhere on earth, we find the same underlying assumptions. These are ontological assumptions, assumptions made at the very root of a thing, right? About the nature of life itself. They are one, that the world was created by a male deity figure or God. Two, that existing world orders or cultures, hold on. My fault, y'all. They made me do a puzzle. That females are an auxiliary sex who existed to serve and populate these male world orders. How y'all feel about that? The autonomous female sexuality poses a wild and lethal threat to these world orders. I believe this. In a sense, but I think this, like, I think peace copper, I think sometimes like this kind of thought process leads to over sexuality in a not good way. You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes women empowerment leads to unrighteousness because the world is the earthly world is really sexual. So I think sometimes women will find this power and put it into a sexual manner because that's how the world is. So they'll leave they'll they'll leave the man's version of over sexuality into their own version of over sexuality, but in a sense it still meets at the halfway point over sexuality, you know. So it is what it is. Peace, Stokes. Right? And therefore must be controlled and repressed. And finally, that God's existence as a male sanctions this repression. The perfect circulatory or tautology of these assumptions only helps to bind them more securely around the human psyche. Tautology is like repeating something over and over, like the tautology, right? It would be like pretty much saying the same thing over and over again, right? All right, we good? They are as erroneous as they are universal, seems to pose no problem to their upholders. Peace, Denisha. Yeah. I've been gone for a while, you know what I'm saying? Had to take a break, get some shit in order, but I'm back. I'm back. I'm gonna be focused on reading. I'm gonna be focused on learning. I'm gonna be focused on, different subjects, not the same old subjects and shit like that. If you see me anywhere, I might be in the comment sections of people teaching. That's it. So you might see me in like Los's live or something like that. There's a few other people, but here we are. Where are we at? That they are as erroneous as they are universal seems to pose a problem to their upholders. After all, wherever we go on earth, every intact institution, religious, legal, governmental, economic, military, communications, and customs is built on the solid slab of these assumptions. And that's a pretty entrenched error. There's a lot of errors going on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, granddaddies and granddaddies, they didn't have to do all that. Exactly. Facts. Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Los, one of the people that anytime you go in this live, he's talking about information. Not 13 hours of bullshit. In the post-World War II United States, as well as in Europe and most of the world generally, we've gone through a secularizing period in which some of these assumptions have been loosened up and even been made to crumble under questioning, right? But now the backlash is upon us. Today, spokespeople for various fundamentalist religious beliefs use modern media to broadcast a very old idea that female sexuality, i.e., feminist demands for abortion, contraception, reproductive autonomy, child care, equal pay, psychological integrity constitutes a threat to our civilization. Well, I'm going to tell y'all right now, feminism is a threat. Put a one in the comments if you believe feminism is a threat. It is a threat. It's one of the biggest threats that exist on this earth, right? Because that's another thing. Feminism is just another concept that was introduced by people that don't know nothing to lead people astray, right? It's demands for power in situations where the power is unnecessary, right? Because anybody that pays attention to anything that I ever talk about, all I ever talk about is balance. Feminism is the opposite of balance, right? It's a war wager. It's a way to wage war against the opposite sex, right? You know what I'm saying? It's not a good thing. And this amounts to a blasphemy against God, right? It's a blasphemy against God. But what is God, right? God is balance, right? Because if alchemy is all about balance, then God is balance, right? Because what does God say about putting you through refining you like silver, trying you like gold? That's alchemy. So the Bible talks about alchemy. So God is a extreme alchemist, right? So that means God looks for purity and balance, just like we all should. And feminism is not purity, nor is it balance. Horrors of Babylon, Darwin's theory of evolution, and the menace of the world, communism, all somehow get subliminally mixed up in the feminist threat for some very good historic and psychological reasons, which we will explore later, right? For now, it is enough to say that God and civilization are loaded concepts, loaded with dynamite that can always be brought in to end an argument that cannot otherwise be refuted. Or for those who don't lean too heavily on God or who major in civilization, you can always quote an anthropologist. For just as established religions assume the maleness of God, just as fraud and psychoanalysis assume the maleness of libido, so have the social sciences, and in particular anthropology, assumed the generic maleness of human evolution, right? Now, this, I told y'all that there was something that I had came across that made me have a real question. That was it, right? So anybody that's been in here, right, assumed the generic maleness of human evolution. So the reason why that was questionable to me is because I felt like in the beginning of the book, she told us that the male was, she literally said the male was brought for the complex evolution. But then later, she says this, assume the generic maleness of human evolution. But it's like you already said that that was true. You said, she said that everything was woman, and then male came for the evolution part, which was necessary in the creation of humans that we have today. Whatever. Am I tripping? Like, hey, look, I told you I want y'all to talk to me. I know everybody has all different kind of opinions, but am I tripping? Or does that kind of go against, like, is it contradicting? Right? Was this part her being open-minded? Was she being open-minded here? And then maybe as she was writing, she got a little upset and then was like, fuck niggas. You know what I'm saying? Right? Both popular and academic anthropological writers have presented us with scenarios of human evolution that feature almost exclusively the adventures and inventions of man the hunter, man the tool maker, man the territorial marker, and so forth, right? Woman is not comprehended as an evolutionary or evolutionizing creature. She is treated rather as an auxiliary to male dominated evolutionary process. She mothers him, she mates him, she cooks his dinner, she follows around after him, picking up his loose rocks. He evolves, she follows, he evolutionizes, she adjusts. If the book jackets don't give us pictures of female Homo sapiens being dragged by their hair through 2 or 3 million years of He-Man evolution, we are left to assume this was the situation. I feel like when we say what men and women are doing, we have to really determine what men and women we're talking about. Because if you look at different cultures, all different cultures treat their women differently. Not every culture of men try to bring their women down. And a lot of men that you'll find that are trying to bring women down, they're not really connected to their culture. They're connected to the culture of people that do that shit. Usually people that came from Europe or the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? Those people are, Asia, Europe, Middle East. Those are the people that are really extremely doing that shit. And then, Africa, right? Honestly, the world is doing that. Americans, we aren't those kind of people, right? And then when you find a man that's on that shit, they're connected to those other people, right? It reminds me of that video when that girl was like, I got beat up by these black guys. You know what I'm saying? And then when you further look into it, it didn't happen the way she said it did. And then they weren't even black, like American. They were foreigners because we don't do that. We like the concepts that people have of black men in America are not based on black men in America. It's based on foreigners disguised as us walking around pretending to be us. And then when shit hits the fan, they're categorized as us. But we don't do that. All my life growing up, I ain't never known a nigga that be beating on women and shit. Like the stuff that I hear in videos, I be like, yo, I've never met these guys. I've never met them. I don't even meet deadbeat fathers like that for real. I don't. And the deadbeat that we did know, we used to pick him up to hang out and drive him to his baby mom's house. He'd be like, "Oh man, what the fuck?" Like, nah, nigga, you got to go see your son. The fuck are you doing? Then after that, we could go to the mall. And that's word to everything I love. You know what I'm saying? Pick this nigga up and drive him to his baby mom's house. He used to be mad at us because we used to hang out with her and his son. And when he wanted to hang out, he'd be like, "Where y'all at?" "At your baby mom's house with your son, where you should be." He'd be like, "Oh man, what the fuck?" All right, anyway. This despite the known fact that among contemporary and historic hunting and gathering people, as among our remote hunting and gathering ancestors, 75% to 80% of the groups, they keep putting shit on my screen. Peace, book name, please. The Great Cosmic Mother. So we're just reading it with an open mind. Peace, or we're reading it with an open mind. You know what I'm saying? Anybody feel free to leave your opinions when we get to something if y'all want me to stop. You know what I'm saying? But just an open mind. I didn't even look up the author or the authors. Well, I guess we all on divine timing. B's reading it, R just ordered it. You know what I'm saying? How do y'all feel? My son finally got quiet, so I'm assuming he fell asleep. Either that or he is about to jump off or something. Give me a second, y'all. It got too quiet. Give me a second, because he don't usually take a nap this easy. Y'all, give me one. Give me 1 second. I just gotta make sure he ain't on like the top bunk about to do a backflip. Y'all feel me? All right. You know what I'm saying? Hey, he in the grease fucking around. Nah, he's asleep, y'all. I can't believe it. I can't believe it, yo. I'm gonna be honest with you. They say like your youngest is like the wild card, and yo, when I tell you he be like testing me, he and he don't give a shit. He don't care. I'm like, God dang, man. You can't do that. Like, you can't give him that look. You can't like stand up and like, he just be like, whatever. You gotta, you know what I'm saying? None of that shit works. As the youngest of seven, I can confirm. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm the youngest, so I already know too. I'm the youngest too, so I'm already like, yo, if he's anything like me, man, I got shit, man. Good thing my daughter is the middle one, because she could like try to keep him on his toes, because they're a little closer in age. So hopefully she'll keep him balanced. She gives facts, but try to put us with the African woman. My I don't care about shit I say. Facts, these youngest, man, they hard to deal with. All right, y'all ready? This despite the known fact that the oldest tools used by contemporary hunters and gatherers and the oldest, most primal tools ever found in ancient sites are women's digging sticks. This despite worldwide legends that cite women as the first users and domesticators of fire. Uh, this despite the known fact that women were the first potters, the first weavers, the first textile dyers and hide tanners, the first to gather and study medicinal plants. Oh, was that CEO? Peace, Coco. How you doing? I missed you. Was that the real CEO or a fake one? Uh, so have y'all heard about all these things? Women being the first to do? All right. I would be lying if I said I didn't know. I know you'd be lying, nigga. Hey, look. Hey, I gotta give Los a shout out every time I'm live when I see him around. Before I ever went live, man, I used to go in his lives every day. All like, man, I don't care how long he was live. I was just in there, entertained. You know what I'm saying? And then he used to open the panels. I'd go up on the panel and I'd be so eager to share this information because I was new to TikTok. Um, and this nigga motivated me. He was like, yo, go live. And I was like, all right, I got to get all my shit together. I got to have a live, like I have to have it planned. And this nigga was like, man, if you don't just press go live, if you don't just fucking press go live. And I was like, he was like, if you press go live, he was like, you already have the information. Just press go live and do it. And you'll know what to say. So one day he told me that shit. Like 2 days later, you know, because I was still like, nah, fuck that. I need to organize. But 2 days later, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to just go live. I pressed the button. Boom. And here we are. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Lo. Shout out to David. There's a bunch of people, man. There's a bunch of people that have been here for a long time. You know, people that motivate me and keep me grounded in like wisdom and furthering my information. Like David had me reading the Bible again. You know what I'm saying? Man, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to these folks, man. Shout out to these folks. Shout out to CEO, man. That's my nigga, man. All right, y'all. That's enough. Enough of that shit. All right. So this, despite the known fact that women were the first potters, first weavers, the first to gather and study medicinal plants. I love that because this goes into the information that I'll be talking about. You know what I'm saying? The medicinal plants, like this is the hoodoo and the root work and shit like that. Like, and I don't want y'all to feel no kind of way. One of the reasons why I think feminism is like some bullshit is because like, yo, y'all ever like y'all know the phrase like, oh, she put her foot in that, right? You know, when Like when a woman really be throwing down in the kitchen, they be like, damn, she put her foot in that shit. She put her heart into it. You could taste the love, right? Ain't Put a one in the comments if you've ever ate the food and be like, yo, I could taste the love in this shit. You know what I'm saying? I could taste the love in this. Like if you went to your grandma's house, you could taste the love in the food, right? Now, what I'm telling y'all, what these people did was they told women to get out the house and go work and spend all your time away from the house, because if women had mastered these medicinal plants, which is herbs and all these things and roots and everything, that would mean that not only are you getting the medicine, but you're getting the love behind the medicine. So it's extra powerful. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you went to that's why you could, when you went to your grandma's house, you could cough and she probably get your shit together, right? She get your shit together in a day, because there's more to it than just the actual herb, man. If y'all don't believe that there's like a spiritual aspect to these things, I don't fuck with you. You know what I'm saying? I don't fuck with you. My mom's from the deep, 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 deep South. My grandma, deep, deep, deep South. A little small town in Texas that don't nobody in Texas even know about. You know what I'm saying? But these people can make you feel better. You know what I'm saying? With some shit. Like these are the same women that you could look into your refrigerator 50,000 times and not know what to do. And you could look, there could be an olive, a grape, and a chicken tender in the refrigerator. And you'll look and be like, man, I don't know what to do. Your mom, your grandma will come home, see that olive, chicken tender, and that grape, and make some goddamn smothered turkey legs. And you'd be like, yo, I don't know what the fuck is going on. But what you just made was not in the refrigerator when I looked. It wasn't. Ain't no way. Y'all tell me if I'm lying. If I'm lying, I'm flying. And my feet ain't touched the ground. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling the damn truth. All right. Where are we at? I.e. the first doctors, right? So they're the first doctors in any sense of the form. I do agree with this too, right? Because like y'all, you know, in the Bible where it says Eve was made from the rib of Adam, right? Now the first thing that it was talking about, it was like, so in my book, I broke down loneliness, right? And how loneliness is like a disease, right? When you're lonely, it's like a disease, right? Isolation, these things cause sickness, right? So if Adam was here first, he would have been suffering from the sickness of isolation. So the first medicine provided to him would have been a woman. You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense. If Adam was alone, he would have he could have had all the food in the world, all these things. He would have suffered from the sicknesses that come from isolation. So if he was suffering from those sicknesses that came from isolation, and God was like, "I'm gonna make you a helpmate, helpmate," right? This is his first medicine, because other than that, he wouldn't have had nothing to suffer about, right? And if she was the first medicine, the only way he would have been able to get her is if she gave herself to him. So that would mean she was the first doctor, the first medicine, the first what are those people called, and on, right? Observing the linguistic interplay between mothers and infants, mothers and children, and among work groups of women, it is easy to speculate on the female contribution to the origin and elaboration of language. That the first time measurements ever made, the first formal calendars were women's lunar markings on painted pebbles and carved sticks is also known. And it is thoroughly known that the only God image ever painted on rock, carved in stone, or sculpted in clay from the upper Paleolithic to the middle Neolithic, and that's roughly 30,000 years, was the image of a human female. Can anybody attest to that? Because I know you had like mother, maiden, and crone, which was like the three forms of a woman. Mother, maiden, crone. It's like the three stages of a woman's life, right? And this is like the energy of a deity, like a woman deity, right? But usually these deities came with a son, right? They usually came with a son with them to like represent like fertility, represent like you know, creation and evolution, et cetera, et cetera. But I do believe this to be true. I didn't do the research. You know, you highlight the shit, you research later, right? In 1948, The Gate of Horn was published in Britain. In 1963, it was published in America, retitled Religious Conceptions of the Stone Age. In this pioneering work, archaeologist and scholar G. Rachel Levi or Levy showed can y'all see? Put a one in the comments if y'all could see. Let me know if it looks good on y'all end. Showed the unbroken continuity of religious images and ideas descending from the Cro-Magnon peoples of the Upper Paleolithic period in Ice Age Europe through the Mesolithic and Neolithic developments in the Near East, right? So it's important to know that like these concepts they don't have much to do with us. You know what I'm saying? They have some, but what they're trying. Give me a second. Right? Hey, look, y'all. I be studying. I be reading. Los ain't the only nigga with books, y'all. All right. Los ain't the only one with books, right? So when they talk about that, you know, then you get into these concepts that are in this book, right? You know what I'm saying? Right? So this would be it would be a moment in which I would cross-reference and look into this book, right? Because they talk about the ancient, like the Near East, right? So this would be a time where me personally, I would cross-reference. And now that we're here, that shall be that shall be what I do. All right. But what I'm what I'm saying is when they talk about these concepts, they're not solely talking about like ancient concepts, I promise you. They're talking about more modern concepts than the things that we would show admiration to. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, I'm trying to find a way to put it, but I can't put it the way I'm trying to. But does that make sense? Some of these concepts are talking about things that we wouldn't give any admiration to. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like, oh, interesting. I don't think that's original, right? All right, y'all feel me? Okay. uh, Lost to us in the midst of time, but their primal vision, images, and gestalts of human experience on this planet still resonate in our psyches, as well as in our historic, religious, ontological symbols. These early Stone Age people, right, bequeathed to all humanity a foundation of ideas upon which the mind could raise its structures. I think that's beautiful. And what were these primal human images and ideas? This is actually where I stopped reading. So from this point on, I have not read none of this book. All right. So from this point right here on, I have not read any of this. I stopped right here. Maybe I stopped, and that's why I stopped right here. Because I was like, I have that book downstairs, and I just never got back to it because I was like doing my thing. But now here we are. You feel me? Yeah, lifetime learning. Let's get it. Right. And what were these primal human images and ideas? The cave as the female womb, the mother as a pregnant earth, the magical fertile female as the mother of all animals, the Venus of Lassell standing with the horn of the moon upraised in her hand, the cave as the female tomb where life is buried, painted blood red and awaiting rebirth. Levi shows the continuity of these images and symbols through the late Neolithic Near Eastern rites and mythologies and their endurance 30,000 years later in modern religions, right? In Christianity, for example, with its central image of the birth of the second child or the sacred child in a cave-like shelter surrounded by magic animals, and especially in Catholicism, the icon of the great mother who stands on the horn moon and awaits the rebirth of the world, right? So 30,000 years ago, right, this is the same time where the Naga wisdom made it into Burma, India, right? That's 30,000 years ago. 30,000 years ago also the Mayans had made it into well, before 30,000 years ago, but they tried to say 30,000 years ago is around the same time the Mayas made it into the Mississippi and Ohio Lake Valley regions, right? So there was a lot of American movement around. You feel me? There was a lot of true wisdom going around, right? But obviously these things have been watered down over time, right? So the reason why she's going back to this is because there's original wisdom in here. But her real argument is with modern wisdom, right? Because modern wisdom is what destroyed the feminine aspect of the world. Are we all in agreement with that? Are we, that we cool with that? The evidence leaves no doubt that these images were at the origins of what we call human psychological and spiritual expression, right? Levi's book is a masterpiece. It received great praise upon both its British and American publications, and has since been virtually bypassed and ignored by the anthropological, archaeological, academic establishments, right? So, in her attempt to tell us about what's happening with women, she's low key telling us what happened with all true information, right? Right. So now when we think about everything that we teach and we talk about in these lives, teach and talk about, these are all the, oh shit, I hate when I ruin a book. This makes me want a whole new book that I accidentally did that. But damn. All right, so anthropological, archaeological, right? Ain't those the main things that people always bring up, even in our arguments that we talk about, right? And the truth that we try to bring to the table, these are the things that they talk about. But right here, we're hearing that shit, the truth gets bypassed by these people. Why does the truth get bypassed? Because there's a narrative being pushed. And the thing about the narrative is they've covered every basis. So everybody in the world could have a sense of argument in reference to this kind of stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? Everybody has an argument. That's why the collective consciousness is what freedom needs. That's another reason why I left to take a break, because I was like, yo, I'm spending too much time delving into hatred when I need to get more aligned with what's connecting. What's connecting instead of what's disconnecting, because I'm trying to find wisdom. You know what I'm saying? I can't argue with fools all day long and find wisdom, because there's only going to be a little bit that they give. And that, and it ain't enough. It ain't enough, right? Why? Because her evidence is irrefutable. It shows with clarity and in the solidarity of stone and bone that the first 30,000 years of Homo sapiens existence was dominated by a celebration of the female processes, right? That really just means a celebration of truth, right? Of the mysteries of menstruation, pregnancy, and childbirth, of these analogous abundance of the earth, right? Of the seasonal movement of animals and the cycles of time in the great round of the mother, the gate of horn is as close as we can come to reading the sacred book of our early human ancestors, right? And it confirms what too many people do not want to know, that the first God was a female, right? So if 30,000 years ago, right, the year of the first 30,000 years of Homo sapiens existence, right, is what she's talking about, right? But 30,000 years ago, niggas like us was moving around the world, right? Do you see the difference? So that just lets you know that she's talking about somebody else's history, somebody else's truth, somebody else's, like, that's why there's such a confusion when it comes to history, because there was truth, and then truth met a wall, got suppressed, and then lies were pushed from there on. So we had to go so far back in time all the time to try to find an ounce of truth. Since Levi wrote, the tendency has been to relegate these old Stone Age and Neolithic images to the psychological realm. They've become archetypes of the unconscious and so forth, while anthropological writers, proper, both academic and popular, continue to explain physical, real human development solely in the terms of the experience of the male body in hunting, aggression, and tool making. Thus, the female images, which are there and cannot be denied, are sideswiped, reduced to the subjective, the mythic realms, and thus the first 30,000 years of our human history is denied to us. The truth is denied, right? Is that what she's saying? The truth in all aspects is denied to us, right? Years of our human history is denied to us, relegated to a mind trip or psychological software. Even among feminists in recent years, there has arisen doubt that these images and symbols might be anything but mythology, i.e., unrealities. Facts, Los. They flipped the guides, y'all. they flipped the guides for sure, right? Because people say sun god, and they think that the sun god is a him, but then you go to certain cultures where they'll tell you that the sun is a feminine aspect of life, right? But me personally, this might sound crazy. I think the sun, what we look at is the front side of a black hole, right? I think there's a black hole, and then there's, like, what is it called? The event horizon, right? So at the event horizon is when the particles get sucked into the black hole, right? Everything stops, it seems, but that's where everything gets into this black hole, right? And I think that the black hole looks, boom, you hit it, and then on the other side comes the light, right? So I think on the opposite side of the sun is a black hole. Facts. All right. To approach our human past and the female god, we need a wagon with at least two wheels. One is the mythical, historical, archaeological. The other is the biological, anthropological. So we taking notes now because, like I told y'all, I ain't read this part yet. A strong track has already been laid down for the mythical, historical, archaeological wheel. Milestones along that track. All right. Like, you got to highlight all the names, y'all, so you can get, it's a lot. So we just gonna, because when you read, me personally, I'm gonna look at I'm gonna look at all this. I'm gonna go check all this shit out. That's how I read. If I wasn't reading to y'all, I'd probably stop on this page and go check out all this shit and see what it's all talking about. But here we are reading together, right? So I'm not gonna do that right now. All right, milestones along the track, along with G. Rashaud Levy's great work, are J.J. Bakofin's Myth, Religion and the Mother Right. Robert, should I read all this? Y'all take a screenshot. I'm not about to read all that. because those are just different books. But if y'all want to read them, if y'all want to check them out, get a screenshot real quick. But I'm not about to read all those. All right. The other side of our wagon, the biological, anthropological side, has almost no will and no track. Not because there is no important place to go in that direction, but because the physical cultural anthropologists are off somewhere else, busily mapping the evolution of Tarzan. Wait a minute. Hey, look, that might not sound deep to y'all, but that kind of sounds deep to me. Put a 1 in the comments if it sounds like a joke, but you can see how deep that really is. Put a 1 in the comments if that sounds like a joke, but you can see how deep it really is. Shout out to Divine Love. Yes, yes, yes. Right? That's deep. You know what I'm saying? Who they calling a monkey? You know what I mean? Who they talking about? Because she talked about caves, right? She talked about Stone Age, and now she's talking about Tarzan. So she's not. If put those 3 things together: caves, Stone Age, Tarzan. Who is she mad at? I'm gonna leave that there. But who's she mad at? Right. So when it comes to this feminism, they're mad at people that are connected to caves, Stone Age, and Tarzan. Right. They're not mad at everybody. That's why feminism gets a bad rap, because they're fighting the totality of men, but it's like not all men are doing what you're mad at. There is no body of anthropological work based on the evolution of female biology. With rare exceptions, there have been no attempts whatsoever to study the evolution of human physiology and cultural organization from pre-hominin to modern man, from the perspective of the definitive changes undergone by the female in the process of that evolution. Popular books on this subject by Lionel Tiger, Desmond Morris et al., which means like, and everybody else, are invariably male oriented, treating the evolution of the female as sex object only, from Monkey and Heat to Hot Bunny. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. One delightful exception is Elaine Morgan's The Descent of Woman. Oh, that's deep. That's interesting. I want that book because I have The Descent of Mankind. During 12 million years of dry Pliocene, Morgan speculates the female pre-hominid took to the oceans, surviving in the warm and food-filled coastal waters, and during this experience underwent a sea change from knuckle-walking, rear-sex primate to upright human sexual body, to which the male primate responded by becoming man. All right, look, y'all. This is what we're reading from. I got to stop here because I got to pick my children up. But I appreciate y'all coming out. Peace and abundance. I'm going to go live as much as I can. I just got a job too, so, we'll see how that works. But I'm going to go live. I'm not going to waste all my energy on these other lives, draining my energy, so I'll have more energy to go live myself. Plus, I want to create this environment, right? Or add to the environment of the people that come on here consistently reading and consistently learning. So I appreciate y'all. We're going to push through. This book is hella long, so I'll be around for a while. You know what I'm saying? You feel me? And we can do that. We could also do this book, jump into other books and stuff like that. Whatever y'all want to do. All right. I appreciate y'all. Don't forget, I got books available. Somebody's Been Lying, A Great American Deception. Somebody's Been Lying, Words or Spells and Curses, available on Amazon. All right. So go show your love. Go show your support. I appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate y'all tuning in and leaving comments and shit. You feel me? I'll catch gifts. I'll stay for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Send the gifts. I'll be here. You know what I'm saying? I got bills to pay. Send your gifts. No, you know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it all. They're not expensive, really. It's more so like having to constantly do it. I'm potty training my son. He'll pee in there, but then he'll go hide behind like the awning or not the awning, but what are those little things? The ottoman. And you know, when we're outside, he'll go run around a corner and go shit on himself. It's funny as shit because you'll see the top of his little head, and then you're like, God dang it, what are you doing? Done hit. You know what I'm saying? Now he's hiding somewhere so he could go shit on himself in peace. It is what it is. You feel me? It is what it is. Can't be mad at him. Can't be mad at him. Dude, just shit in the toilet, bro. Man. All right, y'all. Peace and abundance. All right.